again, I'm John.
And I'm Charlie, and here we are sitting in a 2013 Ferrari 458.
So this 458 for sale currently at Nalley BMW of Decatur, so thank you to Nalley BMW. A couple things we're going to talk about. Obviously, Ferrari in general is a special car, so you don't need a ton of introduction there to understand the value here. This one's a little bit unique in that it is not resale red. It's not Rosa Corsa. It is actually a Bianco Avus, I believe is the color. It's a white. It's over a Nero interior, so not a ton of white Ferraris around. I don't know if it would be my first choice, but it certainly looks clean with the Nero top, with the black top.
It absolutely does, and there's nothing like a Ferrari engine bay from the rear. That red engine cover is absolutely gorgeous.
Very true. So that's one of the things that, this is, again, 458, so succession of mid-engine Ferraris, I guess, going back to my childhood: 308, 328, 350, 348, 355, 360, 430, and then this. Something I actually learned recently: this was the last road-going regular series production Ferrari, the first one to be offered without a manual transmission. The Enzo, the Challenge Nalley, and the 430 Scuderia were all offered without manuals, but they were, with the exception of the Enzo, the Challenge Nalley and the Scuderia were versions of the 360 and the 430, which both were offered with manuals. So I have a particular chip on my shoulder against this car for starting that downfall.
And me being myself, I'm going to get probably a lot of hate from him as well as many others, considering that I'm pretty thankful that we're not in a manual Ferrari sitting in Atlanta traffic right now.
Yeah, see, I drove a manual 6-speed on the way over here because it's my daily driver, so that's all I know and love. One thing I'll give it points, though, for is this is the last naturally aspirated V8. I don't know if the California engine was developed before or after, but we have 488 went turbo, and everything in the future is either going to be turbo or hybrid from all indications. So naturally aspirated 572, 570, something like that.
I believe it's 5.
Okay, so it's slightly less than 4.5 liters as far as the displacement. And then that fantastic sound comes from that flat plane crank.
And the way it revs. This engine redlines at 9,000 RPM, so nothing to complain about there.
Well, except that you have to use a floppy paddle to access that power.
I do not mind these beautiful carbon fiber paddles, actually. And they are column mounted, as they are in pretty much every Ferrari.
Okay. Flat bottom wheel, LED, I guess, tack across the wheel there at the top.
Yep.
And what is it? Manatino, I believe, is what they call the
the mode selector.
Yeah, the mode selector there, which we'll look at there in a minute. But you have wet, sport, race, and then CT off, and ESC off. Those are the fun modes there at the end. We won't be using those today. Race mode, I think, is the only way to do it.
I'd agree. Yeah.
Of course, ECU shift patterns. Is suspension affected by that, or suspension manual?
Suspension is affected right here.
Okay.
So we have a special button for the suspension, so you can put it in a variety of different modes, including bumpy road, depending on where you're at. So. Which
the city we're in right now has a lot of bumpy roads, so we'll be leaving it in that. Blinkers are on the steering wheel, which I think is super cool. This is going to be. I know I'm in a Ferrari video right now, but I'm going to talk about a Ford for a moment. So I had the pleasure of driving. I want to say it was a Ford 500, maybe in that awkward Taurus, not Taurus age. But anyway, it was a Ford. You know what? It was a Fusion. It was one of the first Fusions, and it had air conditioning controls for the fan speed and temperature on the steering wheel. So since then, I've become a little bit of a nerd for having all the controls on the steering wheel. I had a couple of Honda S2000s, and everything's very driver-centric there. So I love having the blinkers, and the lights are on the wheel as well. So I just think that's really cool. Everything else in the car is centered toward the driver. I don't have a darn thing to look at in front of me here, except a beautiful panel of carbon fiber with
some yellow stitching for you over there.
Yeah, some yellow stitching. Everything is, even all the infotainment stuff, everything is literally canted toward the driver in this car. You got kind of an open console here. You do have climate control switches in the middle, and then some open space.
Like a cup holder and a half down there?
Something like that. Would you look at that? There is a cup holder. This does not pass the family test. I'm not even going to try doing the 0 to 60 score on family in this car. The sippy cups would not fit in there very well. There's a small area for luggage back here, and of course it's got a front area for the bags there. If you're doing this, though, you have custom matched luggage for your car. You have to. Love looking back through the glass and seeing the engine back there through that firewall. The roof is kind of a, this is a coupe, obviously, not a spider, and the roof is like a carbon weave.
It's like a mesh, yeah. It's very interesting. And talking about the gauge cluster, so over here, up in front of me, you've got a completely analog tack, but everything to either side of that is digital. So they wanted to keep that analog tack to kind of keep that more, I guess, old school feel. But you do have basically LED screens for all the infotainment system on the left, as well as an LED speedo on the right. So,
and the tack is yellow, which matches the stitching, as well as the brake calipers.
Yep.
So these are the kind of things you have to think about when you're speccing your Ferrari. If you've ever watched any videos or looked at anything about the Ferrari Italia, where they spec the cars there, you must think about whether your tack matches your brake calipers. It's important. Although, to be honest, if you think about a boring black tack, you can't have that in a high-performance car. White is nice, but white's a little too luxury for me. The red and the yellow, I think, are really the way to go. And yellow with white it works. Especially being in Georgia, where we're located, yellow often happens on white. You get a white car, it's going to be covered in pollen in the spring. I do like the digital dash type. And this is, I know, an earlier one, but I do enjoy that you can change the screens.
Yeah.
Right now, you can see it says warm up over there, so it's telling you what the car is doing. You can have backup camera over there. You can have nav. You decide what's displayed, and I appreciate the accessibility there and the lack of a tablet in the middle of the screen. No offense to Tesla, but exhaust note from inside the cabin, even at low RPMs, is fantastic
and loud,
very loud. You're not going to get burbles and cracks right now from this exhaust while it's warming up, but I don't think anyone's going to complain at any point in time about the sound coming through those pipes. In our other scoring criteria, things like the valet score, it's going to score pretty much a 10 on that. I can't see any other car that's going to get parked ahead of this one in most situations.
Well, we are nearing Buckhead, so
true.
Let's test it out. Looks like it's pretty warmed up. Yep, we gotta go.
It makes pretty noises. So mid-engine, rear drive, obviously. I think everyone knows that by now, but I'm going to state it for the obvious. Again, going back to talking about mid-engine, from a handling perspective, obviously it's going to be more advantageous, but when it starts to break loose in a slide, again, we're not sliding this around on city roads, I still prefer that front-engine, rear drive, pendulum kind of feel. We have a thing for keys, nice-looking keys, especially in high-end exotic cars. On a vehicle with this MSRP, new or even used price, I think it's important that they have a correspondingly nice key. It looks nice, but from a button functionality, it is still a standard put it in kind of key.
Correct.
Obviously, that's evolved since 2013. You got to keep in mind this is a 5-year-old car now.
Yeah.
As Chuck rumbles through the potholes.
Yeah, this is kind of rough. But I will, speaking of the key, so it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but there actually is an engine start button on the steering wheel over here. So what you actually have to do, you have to basically put the key into the ignition as you would in an old school car. And basically, after where it would be to turn on, you're pressing that engine start button to basically get it running.
So you're saying it's just like my S2000s?
Basically.
Yeah. Not quite. So carbon abounds, talking about options. I believe it's a metal horse on the back. I was hoping that was a carbon horse on the back of the key. But carbon all over the dash. You've got some on the exterior as well, which again we'll show you in a little bit. All the way down the center stack, and you can probably see in the camera view all the way back here to my single power outlet. As far as comfort and luxury features, though, let's just say my seat is not power. Yeah. And again, weight savings.
They're not that uncomfortable though. The seats are not that bad. I wouldn't want to do a long road trip in them, but I mean, in terms of daily drivability, I feel like as long as the seat's in its position and you're not manually adjusting it every 5 minutes,
right? I think you would be manually adjusting. I'm not even sure if this one tilts. It looks like it's got a little lumbar wheel back here for me to turn, like in an 80s Maxima. But it does have the little pull to slide back and forth. And again, I get it for weight savings that it should be a manual seat. It's just surprising in a car this expensive. Horn buttons are even integrated into the wheel itself. Correct. Not on the airbag, but they're in the thumb positions of the wheel.
And I love this steering wheel. It's got a great feel. I love the steering wheel at the top has LED shift lights that start to light up as you approach red line. It's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, there's nothing like a flat bottom wheel. You can put a flat bottom wheel on a smart car and have a good time with it. So I'm a huge fan of those. Doors here. A little bit of plastic on the inside, not much, but a tiny bit on the button surround up here, and then the door handles over here.
You want to talk about the controls on this thing? Because I think it's kind of interesting that the window and door lock and unlock controls are both. So window is down here in the center console, and lock and unlock is right up here above us.
Yep. And I do remember the earlier Ferraris had a sticky issue with some of the plastic switching and panels. There's actually a whole company that makes a product that replaces that, if I remember correctly. So that's not uncommon. You know, people make jokes about, you know, Italian reliability and things like that. I'm okay with my switch gears melting off as long as I still have a 570 horse V8 wailing behind me. So I don't have the original sticker to go over with you as far as what options were added, what are cost options. I do know, again, carbon package is extra, upgraded stereo, things like that. Don't know what else in the Ferrari book. From my assumption, pretty much everything you add is an option.
I'm sure all of this stitching costs some money.
I'll point out that this car has what I'm going to call the base wheels on them. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're kind of a thicker 5-spoke, and they're painted gloss black, so they blend in and they look good with the white and black theme that's going on. But I think they need a lighter visual look to them. I like a little more of a basket weave or a, you know, something that's got a little more, little thinner lines, a little less visual weight to it. I will say, from a passenger comfort standpoint, at least I have 2 air conditioning vents.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I didn't know passengers mattered in these cars.
Yeah. What I have noticed is that if your foot is not on the brake and you're on an incline, the car will roll back without a question.
Now this is a 7-speed, correct?
I do believe it's 7 yet. I haven't had the time to roll all the way through the gears yet, but I'm sure we'll get there.
And, you know, as the F1 transmission has evolved and developed, the shifts just get faster and faster to the, you know, point of splitting a cat's hair of a millisecond between them.
Yep. And they're intense.
Yep. And I think, you know, you can change that a little bit by coming out of race mode and going into more of a sport mode. Notice it doesn't have a comfort.
Yeah, correct.
You want comfort by California.
You've got sport, and then I guess the least aggressive mode you've got here is wet. I mean, it's either
but you choose this one. I think if it's raining, I should be driving this thing in CT off, personally. I do have leather on my sun visor. I talk about how I like everything that I touch to actually be the material. Contrast stitching, leather, and I get a mirror on mine. Nope, you get a pocket.
Yep, no mirror for the driver's side.
Headliners, leather, pretty much all the way around. Zero to 60 on these is 3.4,
something in that range. Yeah, about 3 seconds. Quarter mile in low 11, I believe.
Top speed 210.
Right around there. Yeah, we got 220 on the dash. I don't think it'll do quite that, but
we'll find out today.
All right, so we've got Jelly driving now.
We should all be so thankful that we survived Charlie driving.
Great driver.
So we're going to do some slow rollers, kind of driving around, mainly beauties for the camera car, but at the same time, we're also going to be able to get some low speed, as if we didn't have enough already traffic impressions on the car. So we're driving through residential areas and kind of replicating what I would consider to be a commute in the car.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you can afford the car, you're probably not commuting in it. But if you are, my score is going to be, yes, there is a cup holder, but it's way up here and pretty shallow. There is a place for your phone, so that's nice. I don't know if the modern, you know, freaking 42-inch big screen phones are going to fit in there. But there is space for it there. I think this car is so driver-centric that I would be hesitant to even suggest dailying or commuting in it. I think it would be cool because you'd be the only guy in the office doing it. but I'm going to go ahead and give it a very low score on that.
This is a little bit more hardcore than something like an R8 or maybe even a Huracan. Like this to me, those are a little bit more dailyable. And my first impressions driving this are just, you feel every aspect of the road, which is great when you're on track or great when you want to take it out for a Sunday drive. But this is one of the roughest rides I've ever been in.
Yep, I would agree with that. You know, it's we're all about that static life, right? No bags here. So, you know, and I'll get a little bit of hate on the comment section for this as well, but I do like the California from the standpoint of it's throw the top back and you still have
someone likes the California. Yeah,
there's one person. It's kind of got back seats. I think they call them basically insurance seats. But I think if you have to have the prancing horse and you're going to be daily driving it, maybe look at something like that. However, if I have to choose ultimate Ferrari, so what's your ultimate Ferrari?
812 super fast, no question. No question.
The young kid picks the latest and greatest.
Absolutely, front mid-engine.
News flash.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, for me, it's the 360 Challenge Nalley.
I see you in a GTC Ford Lusa.
So that's my second favorite, which actually I kind of like the FF better. I don't know why.
That's fair.
Different. It's the same car, but so 360 Challenge Nalley, stripped out, bare bones, the first of the really like serious cars that were street legal. Some of you are going to argue, well, they made a couple 348 street legal, 348 challenges street legal. Okay, yes, they did through a couple of them, but as far as a car that was actually built to be on the street and a track special, I'm going to call the Challenge Nalley the winner in that. And you just stripped out, cool aluminum pedal kind of deal. It did have floppy paddle. There's been one converted to manual, and oh my stars. But anyway, stripped out track day special type carbon fiber door card kind of car. And from my understanding, you can actually get those Class C certified as well, which typically was only reserved for the F40, F50, that type of thing.
What you got?
So after something like 20 minutes of driving this car, I've found some kind of menu system over here that does trip and status and that kind of thing. It's got my gauges in there.
We were convinced
VDA.
That nothing worked.
So VDA is vehicle dynamics. You've got F1 track, EDIF, F1 DC. Oh, come on, come back. ESC, ABS, and SCM, which I'm assuming is stability control.
These are relevant things.
Yeah. So again, race mode's really the only way to do it. So you have warm up, go, and over. Gives you outside temperature. Mileage on this car. So we're just a hair over 33,000 miles, which for 2013, that seems like nothing. However,
it's a Ferrari.
In the exotic world, 33,000 miles is a lifetime in an exotic car. And that, I think, speaks to how little you can actually daily drive these cars and the value there. I do appreciate, though, an exotic car that you can actually drive and rack up miles on. I know it can be done, but to your point, R8, maybe even Huracan, I don't know, might be a little bit better for your 33,000 miles.
Yeah.
They talk about servicing costs on these. We're not going to directly quote servicing costs on them.
We are not.
But they are substantial. Annual services, that kind of thing, is a little bit more than your Kia Forte. But they are, it's worth it. I mean, for this driving experience, what is it? The Fast and the Furious Ferrari, bro, you can't afford it. I think is the line.
Yeah. If you have to ask, you can't afford it. More than you can afford, pal.
There you go. Thank you. So anyway, AC has climate control, which I appreciate. Multi-directional. I assume it has heat. If not, you got an engine back there for it.
I don't think there are heated seats in here.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm surprised there's seats at all. No heated seats, no cooled seats, no massaging seats, none of that crap. These are the standard seats, right? These are
I believe so. Yeah, I don't think these are the race seats. They feel like race seats, but they're not.
Yeah, they're very well bolstered, very comfortable.
I think. Wow, look at that! I think these headrests are actually adjustable.
I just know they have a prancing horse on them.
That is correct.
My understanding is if you put a prancing horse on anything, it makes it faster.
And most reliable.
It's Chuck's Italian car game.
I don't hate it. Actually, this has been one of my favorite driving experiences so far. I truly enjoy this.
I don't know a lot of people that are going to say driving a Ferrari isn't one of their favorite driving experiences.
Yeah, I mean, this is full disclosure, first time in an Italian, or driving an Italian car, period.
Okay.
First time driving a Ferrari for sure. So, I mean, it's actually a lot more raw than I expected it to be. It's definitely more raw than something like an R8. I get to drive a Huracan for an extended period of time, but Huracan is an R8.
Yeah.
So this has been pretty great. I mean, you can feel where their mind was at with this. This is Ferrari's got that racing heritage, and they love to tout that as much as they love to over tout that. It is the truth, and you can tell this to me is one of the greats. I personally would probably take one of these over a 488. As much as I love my turbo V8s, this has a special place in my heart.
I have to say I'm proud of you for saying that. I want to make sure everyone on the channel understands that there's nothing like a naturally aspirated V8, and Charlie has just agreed to that. So it's got the motor the way God intended
Absolutely.
it. Air comes in from the front and goes out the back, and nothing stops it.
Yeah.
So.
And I drive a twin turbo, and it's still, to me, this just feels amazing. I mean, it's a great change-up. I love the torque. I love everything that a twin turbo provides, but there's nothing like the sound that comes out of this thing.
That is correct. Again, going back to that flat plane crank, I mean, much has been said about it, so I don't need to. I don't need to over theorize on that. But the difference that sound makes over a standard V8 is worth mentioning at least once in the video. I think that makes twice for me now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dual pedal into neutral.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing.
So, in some cars we talk about will it baby, which we've already eliminated. No, this one won't. In this car we talk about will it scrape.
This will definitely scrape. It does have a front lift system that is worth mentioning. So it's got a front axle lift. It's controlled by a little button over here. It's pretty quick. I think it takes less than 10 seconds to lift the front, which is not bad at all.
It's less time than it would take me to lift the front.
I don't believe that there is a glove box. So no glove box. It's definitely a little bit on your storage space. I assume you keep them on your hands because you're driving a Ferrari.
I was reading something about that the other day. It was somebody was talking about when was the last time you actually saw gloves in a glove box?
Gloves in a glove box. I have driving gloves and winter gloves in my glove box.
Here we go. You're the exception. That was nice.
Yeah.
So that was in sport, and I don't know if you felt, but I certainly did, that it's slightly less backbreaking on the shifts, which for these roads and for the filming we're trying to do here, that's probably preferable. Not a lot of fun in that, but it's certainly more comfortable if you're trying not to spill your mochaccino latte. I recommend sport. Looks like it's got a little bit of a hill hold feature. You were talking about it rolling a little bit earlier. It does look like that disables after a period of time.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for today's review of this Ferrari 458. Now it's time for our 0 to 60 score. For Valet, this generation of Ferrari barely shows any signs of age, and it's an easy 9. Dynamics, with amazing steering, great sound, it deserves a 9, but you can definitely feel that it's not as fast as the latest generation. Family score is going to have to be a 2 with only 2 seaters. It does have a little bit of space for a bag in the front, but other than that, it's kind of tough. Commute is going to have to be a 4 with rough suspension and a loud exhaust that's permeating the cabin pretty much all the time. It's going to be a rough ride to and from work. Tech is going to have to be a 6. It has great performance tech, but lacks a truly intuitive infotainment system. Value is going to have to be a 7 based on its position in the used car market. With a combined 0 to 60 score of 37, this Ferrari 458 can be one amazing bargain on the used car market.